As the halo of the combustion engine era begins to fade, a desperate battle for survival is being waged on a brand new racetrack. The once unreachable emblems of luxury have suddenly become the heaviest baggage in a high-stakes game. Who is it that has quietly rewritten the rules, forcing the world's traditional giants to bow their heads and go back to school? You know, one of the most soul-crushing feelings in the world isn't being broke. It's spending a lifetime saving up, finally scraping together enough to reach what was once the pinnacle of success, only to turn around and find that the pinnacle has either rocketed into a different dimension or crumbled into dust right where it stood. Imagine this. You've clawed your way onto what you thought was the Noah's Ark of luxury liners. Then a calm voice comes over the intercom and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the new competition is about who has the best submarine." How infuriating is that? Well, the protagonists of our story today are those very luxury liners. In the Chinese market, they were long considered the official ID card of a successful person. I'm talking about the three German titans, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Audi, known in the Jianghu, the social arena, as BBA. If you were to rewind the clock just 10 years and tell someone that driving a BBA was no big deal, they would have looked at you with the kind of pity reserved for someone hopelessly bitter and jealous. Back then, the Mercedes three-pointed star was the silent language of power at a business dinner. The BMW blue and white roundel was the ultimate totem of driving passion. And Audi's four rings, even when jokingly called the official's car, represented the concrete goal for countless middle-class families. With steel, history, and masterful marketing, these three brands built a great wall of luxury across China. Those inside enjoyed the envy of the world. Those outside were desperate to find a way in. But in 2025, that wall began to visibly crumble. When the first half financial reports were released, a silence fell over the auto industry, a terrifying silence. It was a train wreck in slow motion, broadcast for all to see. These three titans delivered what can only be described as their worst report card in recent memory. First, let's look at sales, the absolute bedrock. BMW delivered about 318,000 cars in China. Sounds like a lot, right? But that was a staggering 15.5% drop year over year. Mercedes wasn't much better, with a 14% decline. Audi fared slightly better, but still posted a solid 10.2% fall. These are double-digit drops. For the BBA of old, this was unthinkable, the statistical equivalent of being struck by a meteorite. But if falling sales are a flesh wound, collapsing profits are a deep internal injury, the kind that ruptures your organs. Mercedes' revenue looked okay, but its net profit took a high dive from over 6 billion euros last year to just 2.7 billion. That's a 56% drop. It wasn't just cut in half, it was chopped at the waist. BMW's profits were down 29%, and Audi had the most bizarre performance of all. Revenue actually went up by 5.3%, but net profit vanished by 37.5%. It was a perfect demonstration of selling more and earning less. Pure, pointless motion. In their reports, all three companies confessed, almost in unison, that fierce competition in the Chinese market was the core reason. The subtext was clear. Folks, you have no idea. We have tripped and fallen flat on our faces in what used to be our most profitable kingdom. So what on earth happened? How did an era where a simple logo could make millions of people willingly hand over their life savings just end? The story begins with BBA's old defensive moat. In the golden age of the combustion engine, their dominance was absolute. It was built on a century of technical mastery. The legendary Big Three: engine, transmission, and chassis tuning. It was built on a dream of luxury they planted in our minds. In that era, buying the badge was logical. The emblem was a form of social currency, a silent language that told the world who you were and what class you belonged to. and consumers were happy to pay a premium for that message. But as they say, the times have changed. The rules of the game were completely rewritten by a group of barbarians from China. The moment the drums of the new energy war began to beat, the competition itself changed. It was no longer a 100-meter dash of horsepower. It was now a triathlon: electrification, intelligence, and user experience. And on this new racetrack, BBA looked like a gentleman in a bespoke suit and polished leather shoes, suddenly forced to compete in a cross-country mud run. Every step was a struggle, and they kept slipping and falling. The numbers don't lie. In the first half of 2025, in the premium new energy vehicle market, vehicles over 300,000 yuan, Chinese brands captured over 80% of the market share. Let that sink in. In BBA's own backyard, for every 10 premium EVs sold, at least 8 are now Chinese. This isn't just chipping away at the walls. This is taking a wrecking ball to the foundational pillars. And in the top tier, 500,000 yuan plus market, where the BMW X5s and Mercedes GLEs used to lie back and count their money, the Chinese brand Aito's M9 didn't just challenge the BMW X5, it yanked it off its sales throne and has stayed in the lead. This is more than just a sales victory. It is the decoupling of price from the traditional brand logo. It is consumers voting with their wallets, telling the world that their definition of luxury has changed. Why? Because the consumer's mind has changed. Their needs have changed. People used to buy a BBA for the shiny badge, for that feeling of being a cut above the rest. But today's buyers, especially young ones, value tangible experience. Is your infotainment system laggy? Can your voice assistant understand my accent? Does your auto park actually work? To these questions, BBA's answer is often, or it's in the pipeline. Meanwhile, Chinese brands have already mastered what netizens call the refrigerator, color TV, and big sofa standard, turning smart cockpits into a technological art form. BBA's electric cars aren't bad, but they feel comprised, like the body of a gasoline car with an electric soul awkwardly stuffed inside. Of course, BBA isn't just sitting there. They've launched a counterattack, a 1-2 punch of price cuts and a crash course in smart technology. The price cuts have been brutal. A BMW i3 that once had an MSRP of over 350,000 yuan can now be had for 200,000. Early buyers must feel like the world's biggest suckers. But here's the harsh reality. By slashing prices, they are diluting the very brand premium they spent decades building. Then there's the crash course in tech. BBA realized building their own brains was too slow, so they're opting for a brain swap. They're partnering with China's top tech firms, BMW with Huawei, Audi with Huawei, Mercedes with ByteDance. The tables have turned. BBA is now trading a piece of its sovereignty for a ticket aboard the high-speed vessel of China's smart EV industry. But this path is perilous. True intelligence isn't just about hardware. It's about a deep internet-based mindset of rapid iteration. By the time BMW's much-hyped new era X3 launches in 2026, Xiaomi might be on its third-generation car. To say BBA is finished would be premature. A starved camel is still bigger than a horse. Their brand power in the ultra-high-end market and their century of engineering prowess still count for something. But the main battlefield is no longer a place they can dominate at will. The golden age of easy money is over. The card table has been changed, and their opponents are playing a much faster, more aggressive game. BBA is still holding a decent hand, but they're trying to use their old Texas Hold'em strategies in a frantic game of Dodiu. This late-game comeback is possible, but it will require a revolution, not an evolution. What we're witnessing is a lesson for everyone. The only constant in this world is change. No giant is forever. And when an era decides to abandon you, it won't even say goodbye. A modern poet might say of this moment, "The German three, a badge of pride and might, whose soaring prices shone so very bright. But electric tides have turned the world around, as local heroes rise on home turf ground. With profits plunging, sales in sharp decline, can yesterday's kings still hold the line? The road to change is long and filled with dread, a stumbling giant by new rivals led. The great drama has only just begun. Let's pull up a chair and watch how these former giants fight for survival in the ring of a new world. Because in a truly competitive market, the ultimate winner is always the consumer.